Right off the bat, the jingle for this episode is a twist on the Fire Nation theme. Instead of the usual booming notes, the last two are replaced with higher pitched ones that end in an upward inflection. It's kind of the same upward inflection a sentence that ends in a question has, which is appropriate. This whole episode centers around Zuko reckoning with his past, and reckoning with the questions that the Fire Nation has left him with. Okay, I want to take the time to talk about this. The illusion of time having passed. Zuko only left Iroh 2 episodes ago now, but last episode, The Blind Bandit, we didn't see any Zuko or Iroh at all, which means in the viewer's mind an indeterminate amount of time has passed, which eases us into the fact that Zuko is on the road and nearly starving at this point. Remember back in Game of Thrones when journeys would take multiple episodes to complete? Like the Night's Watch going up north to take the fight to the wildlings. That took 3 or 4 episodes for them just to really get anywhere, but we are also keeping up with them every episode. On the other hand, in season 4 of the same show, Davos floats the idea of going to Braavos, literally across the ocean to Stannis. Then we don't see them for the next episode, but then the following episode they're arriving in Braavos, a trip that should have taken weeks by boat. But the viewer doesn't really mind because we've spent time away from the characters. Time has passed for us since we've seen them, so naturally, in our heads, time has passed for them as well. That's why in later seasons of Game of Thrones, it felt so weird when characters seemingly started teleporting around from place to place and ignoring the time travel takes. Avatar uses the same principle here. Zuko was here, and now he's here. We don't know how or why, but we accept it, because all of this was in between then and now. Alright, I've rambled enough. I just think that's a really cool technique. I've always thought of this bridge as some kind of symbolism. Something as simple as a bridge, an easy path for crossing the ravine, still has a challenge for Zuko. The world is still fighting him at every pass. His path literally falls out from under him, a lot like a search for the Avatar has. So they're cooking this meat, right? But they're holding it up off the fire with twigs. How aren't these twigs catching fire exactly? It's a strong moment too. Up to this point in this episode, not a single word has been spoken, but the story is already being told, obviously. Zuko is nearly delirious from exhaustion, thirst, and hunger to the point where he'll gladly fight and steal other people's food. But no amount of his own pain would make him cross this line. I really love wordless character moments where the writers really just let the actions speak for themselves.
Come on, Spider Snake Eyes!
Spider Snake Eyes, eh? I guess that means he wants either 2 1s or 2 4s. How many legs do you reckon those things have? Never mind, turns out spider snakes have 10 eyes. Just do the classic calculation of adding both animals' eyes counts together. Yeah, that's how they usually do it. That's why turtle ducks have 4 eyes. Also, I want to talk about this. The illusion of egg being wiped off this guy's head time. In this shot, this guy has egg in his head, but a few cuts later, he does not. You see, in Game of Thrones, I'm gonna have to talk about this at some point, so this episode obviously has its influences from classic Western movies like countless Clint Eastwood films, and especially the movie Shane from the 60s. It's a classic formula. A hard, quiet man with a mysterious past rolls into a small frontier town, and after wanting to stay out of the conflict, things are made personal when someone he's close to is threatened, and he solves it the only way he knows how to. With violence. The writers really wear these influences on their sleeves, and it's really cool that they can fit this kind of quiet, personal story into such a fantastical world.
I'll take you to my house and feed your ostrich horse for you.
How do you eat? This is why I said inconclusive evidence of normal pig. Shear this thing down, boom, that looks like a proper normal pig. No way to tell.
You a friend of Lee's?
Wait, what the fuck? This thing has 6 limbs, 4 legs, and 2 wings? This is the closest related thing we ever see to a sky bison.
You a friend of Lee's?
There's a million Lees.
Weird continuity on Lee's dad having his hand on Lee's shoulder. He doesn't hear, but then in the very next shot he does. Stuff like that isn't the biggest deal, but it still makes things feel a little choppy.
Does this guy have a name?
This is really funny. Zuko already has a cover name he's been using, which is Lee. But Lee's dad just mentioned that his son's name was Lee. So Zuko's like, fuck, I can't say Lee because that'd be pretty weird.
Supper's going to be ready soon. Would you like to stay?
I can't. I should be moving on.
Gonsu could use some help on the barn. Why don't you two work for a while, and then we'll eat.
This is like an extremely socially aware and socially adept play from Lee's mom, right? She really put together that Zuko would be alright with eating if he worked for it. In that same vein though, I love that Zuko won't eat unless he works for it. He refuses to be given anything. He'll steal and take, but he won't be handed anything. His pride is still too strong for that. And like he said in the North Pole,
I've always had to struggle and fight, and that's made me strong. It's made me who I am.
Man, Zuko was not a natural-born roofer. What's this, 9 bent nails for 1 shingle? I know he previously lived as a prince, and I guess Iroh didn't see the need to teach Zuko any roofing while they were out on the high seas. Still though, I feel like a smart guy like Zuko could probably put it together a little better than this. In these shots, it seems like there's a little pond over here, but if I'm to believe these shots of the conversation they just had, this pond is right where the house should be sitting. So this kid's teeth continuity is even worse than Gyatso's. In some scenes, his only 2 teeth are nearly at the corners of his mouth, but here they're pretty close to the middle. Anyway, I have a theory that he actually never grows his teeth back in, and that he's in a time loop, and he actually grows up to be the hippo.
Hey Mom, wanna see how Azula feeds turtle ducks?
Oh my god, for some reason I always thought Zuko just threw like a loaf of bread at this turtle duck, probably because Ursa just fed one, but no, that's like a proper rock, dude. Of course though, because it's this episode, we can read into even a small action like that. Zuko's been living with his father favoring Azula for years at this point, so it makes sense that somewhere in the back of his young mind that acting more like Azula will make him better, and probably gain him more love from his father. But he would naturally want to test these actions out in a safer place with his mom, and thankfully she tells him to cut that shit out. Now inserting Cartoon Mission successful!
Zuko, that's what moms are like. If you mess with their babies, they're gonna bite you back.
I know I'm not the first one to point this out, but this little scene exactly mirrors the entire Zuko backstory in this episode. Azula on her Ozai threatens Zuko's life, so Ursa, the mother turtle duck, bites them back.
Make Zuko play with us. We need equal teams to play a game.
I am not cartwheeling.
They were actually doing cartwheels into backward handsprings. Fucking Ty Lee did a double backflip off of it. That's highly technical, Zuko, you underappreciating ass. I got half a mind to come over it.
We are brother and sister. It's important for us to spend time together. Don't you think so, Mom?
I really hate cute, younger, but still creepily manipulative Azula. I gotta go take a shower.
Try to knock the apple off the other person's head, like this.
I like that in this shot you can actually see the apples start to blacken around the top. They didn't really have to do that, but they did it.
See, I told you it would work.
So wait, Azula saw May blush, and in that instant she thought, I'm gonna mind game Mom and I'm making Zuko play with us, then I'm gonna put an apple on May's head, then I'm gonna light that apple on fire, and then Zuko will naturally fucking linebacker tackle May into the fountain and fall on top of her. I mean, it's a classic strategy, everyone knows that one. I can't believe he fell for it, honestly.
If the city is as magnificent as its wall, Ba Sing Se must be something to behold. I hope you all may see it someday. If we don't burn it to the ground first.
Cool to see a younger and clearly much different Uncle Iroh. I feel like this kind of primes the viewer for some heavy shit about to go down. That's not the Uncle Iroh we know and love, so clearly something has to go deeply wrong to change him that much. And when something like that happens, it's usually an entire family that's affected. This is an interesting little detail though. Zuko gets a knife and Azula gets a doll. Iroh in this time period is different for sure, but is he so different that he doesn't know Azula would hate this gift? Maybe, but also maybe it's some kind of his wisdom through these gifts. I always took it as if he sent Zuko a knife because, you know, he's a little soft and he's got to toughen up if he's going to make it in this family. On the complete other hand, Iroh probably noticed that Azula's a little psychopath in the making, and maybe she could stand to be more of a child than she is. Azula described him like this.
His royal tea-loving kookiness.
So he's not a completely different man, and I really feel that's what he was going for.
You're holding them all wrong. Keep in mind, these are dual swords. 2 halves of a single weapon. Don't think of them as separate, because they're not. They're just 2 different parts of the same whole.
Oh god, okay, there's so much symbolism. The swords halve Zuko's face and divide his scarred and unscarred halves. That are 2 halves of his whole, whether he likes it or not. Zuko is still ruled by that day, and is filled with rage and hatred because of it. But we followed him, we've seen the other side, his goodness that perseveres through it all. No matter how much he wants to be heartless like Azula, his unscarred half is still there. Don't think of them as separate, because they're not. They're just 2 different parts of the same whole. It's a full moon! It can't be a full moon every time, guys! Okay, this could technically be taking place on the same day that the Blind Bandit did, fine, but that's still like 4 episodes in a row with a full moon. Do these guys only do things once a month?
Just thought someone ought to tell you your son's battalion got captured. You boys hear what the Fire Nation did with their last group of Earth Kingdom prisoners?
Dressed them up in Fire Nation uniforms and put them on the front line unarmed, way I heard it.
Now that's a proper war crime. Are those people still talking about how Iroh is a war criminal? Man, if this is true, you gotta get whoever ordered that and put his head on a spike, not Iroh.
Why bother rooting around in the mud with these pigs?
Just for a split second here, we get to actually see Zuko and Azula having fun together. It's nice to see that Azula wasn't a total monster back then, even though this episode would really have you believe that. I love this shit, dude. Up until now, Zuko's flashbacks aren't really connected to the overall story. It just so happens he's thinking about these past events. But now, this event lines up with his cousin dying. He's among a family who may have just lost a son for good, so it makes this flashback hit all the harder for not just him, but the audience too. This family is the stand-in for his family, or maybe what he wished his family was. And Lu Ten is Lee's big brother.
When my dad goes, will you stay?
No, I need to move on. Here, I want you to have this.
And this even speaks to how Zuko sees his own troubles in this random Earth Kingdom family now. He sees himself in Lee. He wants to fill that role that Uncle Iroh was trying to fill by sending him that knife. He wants Lee to be strong in the face of this hardship, just like Zuko had to be strong in the face of his own hardships. In Zuko's eyes, he probably has more in common with Lee right now than he ever had in common with Song.
It means Uncle's a quitter and a loser.
What are you talking about? Uncle's not a quitter.
Oh, yes, he is. He found out his son died and he just fell apart. A real general would stay and burn Ba Sing Se to the ground, not lose the battle and come home crying.
What is Azula's problem anyway? I get the idea that Ursa took a liking to Zuko and Ozai to Azula, but like, Jesus. I feel like Azula is a little overtuned in this episode. I think it would have been cool to see the seeds of what she becomes, and maybe only have a moment where she's actually horrible once or twice. But no, this entire episode she is already the worst kind of person. Not saying that that thing doesn't actually happen, I'm just saying it doesn't make for a very interesting look at Azula's childhood if she's just always been the way she is now. You ever notice this kick-ass dragon design behind the Fire Lord's throne? Because I didn't, until like my latest watch through. Don't know how I missed that. Really guys, you're gonna show Ozai's face but leave him without any features in the background? It would be fine if Zuko and Ursa also didn't have any features, but they're literally at the same distance from the camera. Really weird choice to make Ozai a Slender Man here. What I do like is that Azula's fire isn't blue here. It's just the natural orange color of any other fire. We don't need anyone to tell us she gradually achieved blue fire. We can fill in the blanks. I just wish they took this kind of approach with her attitude as well. We can see that she's a prodigy here and what she grows into. In the same way, we could have made her feel only a little cold, calculating, and detached. And we could have filled in the blanks in that respect as well.
But I am here, Father, and my children are alive.
Say what it is you want.
Father, revoke Iroh's birthright.
This scene really shows the corruption that has followed in Sozin's wake, and how it only amplifies through the generations. It all started with Sozin trying to share his people's prosperity with the world, and now it's devolved into this. A brother trying to undermine his brother for the throne. But here we have Azulon, who's the middle ground of these two ideas, who still tries to enforce some twisted form of honor for his firstborn son.
You must know the pain of losing a firstborn son by sacrificing your own.
By inflicting this punishment on Ozai, and by extension Zuko. It's cool to think about how Sozin's family has devolved from his first ideas of greatness.
I'm only telling you for your own good. I know. Maybe you could find a nice Earth Kingdom family to adopt you.
It's like, wouldn't this be so much more interesting if Azula told Zuko about this and was kind of concerned? Or maybe she didn't really know what to feel? Then maybe she leaves the room and has a little smile on her face or something. The kind of smile where she's not even sure why she's smiling, but she's still smiling. Like, I get it, dude. Azula is an awful, terrible person. I really get it at this point. But it's starting to feel cartoonish in this scene.
You have to help. It's Lee. The thugs from town came back as soon as Gonsu left. When they ordered us to give them food, Lee pulled a knife on them. I don't even know where he got a knife.
I like this subtle little look away that Zuko does when the idea of the knife is brought up. Just tiny little motions like that make a scene feel so much more alive.
I know we barely know you, but...
I'll get your son back.
Let's go! Ever notice how in this shot it's actually a little blurry until Zuko steps up closer in frame? I'm not sure what they were going for there. Also, holy fuck, Zuko looks cool. This is Zuko's best hairstyle in my humble opinion. Actually, fuck that. I'm egotistic about it. Fight me. Man, that makes Zuko so cool. So many times we've seen him fighting for lack of a better term, the bad guys. But we've seen the good in him, and we've seen what he's dealt with. And despite these guys wearing Earth Kingdom colors, they're the bad guys. Finally, we can totally side with Zuko, like we've been wanting to. This is the first time we can actually cheer for Zuko. I mean, unless you're one of those weird people who want the bad guys to win. And he's not getting ragdolled for once, and they make him look so cool. Look at him. He doesn't even draw his swords till he gets to the boss fight. This fight is the culmination of everything a viewer wants to see from Zuko. They want to see him kick ass. They want to see him be the good guy. They want to see him win. And that's why this fight hits so hard. It hits every note everyone wants it to. I kind of wish bending with weapons was explored more, actually. We don't really ever get to see it since Aang loses his damn staff all the time.
Look out!
Behind you!
I mean, of course he's behind him. He just turned his back to him. If you listen closely here, you can hear footsteps. And Ursa even looks over her shoulder. I wonder who that is. It's probably just that Ursa just killed Azulon though, and has to get the hell out of Dodge before anyone finds her. And those footsteps are just here so she can hurry along.
No matter how things may seem to change, never forget who you are.
Who are you?
My name is Zuko, son of Ursa and Fire Lord Ozai, Prince of the Fire Nation and heir to the throne.
This is honestly one of the most tragic moments in the whole show, and I don't think I've ever really heard anyone talk about it. Zuko has his flashback of his mom begging him to never forget who he is, but Zuko doesn't understand what she means. Zuko misinterprets these words to mean remember who he is now, son of the Fire Lord, prideful, hateful, what his father wants him to be, but not who he actually is. At this point in the story, Zuko is still so twisted up inside about who he is, so this is a flailing, desperate attempt to fit his mother's words to what he has convinced himself he is and always has been. Don't believe me? Here's a line from just before he betrays the Fire Nation and joins Aang.
During the meeting, I was the perfect prince. The son my father wanted. But I wasn't me.
At this point in the story, Zuko understands what his mother meant with those words. But right now, this isn't triumphant. This is sad.
Not a step closer.
It's yours. You should have it.
No, I hate you.
I think this is a strong moment as well. Some people say that Lee and his mother should have been more accepting, but I don't think so. Zuko's the prince of the nation that just took their son and brother away, and who knows, maybe their husband and father too. Zuko's more evil to these people than these corrupt guards ever were, and despite his good deeds, he has to live with that. This episode pays homage to old westerns, and a lot of those movies ended more bitter than sweet.
Where's Mom?
No one knows. Oh, and last night, Grandpa passed away.
Not funny, Azula. You're sick. And I want my knife back, now.
Who's going to make me? Mom?
I fucking get it, okay? Azula's a head case. She's impossibly hateable, even as a child. Jesus, we could use some subtlety, guys. You're usually so good at that.
Azula, Fire Lord to our nation for 23 years.
23 years, you say? Oh, wait until we get to the Avatar and the Fire Lord. I'm gonna have some shit to say about that.
We lay you to rest, as was your dying wish. You are now succeeded by your second son.
I know I went on at length about Game of Thrones at the start of this video, but this is some Game of Thrones shit right here. Wait, hold on. The town armed itself once they found out who Zuko was? You might get away with saying these two are just holding farming stuff, but this guy's mean-mugging Zuko with a rock in hand. And yeah, and on the iconic shot, the lone cowboy rides into the sunset, his job complete, but he is no happier than he was when he started. This episode's phenomenal. One of the best episodes there is, no doubt. This tops a lot of people's favorite episodes list, and for good reason. Pretty much everything works in this episode, and the tone is so much different than your average episode of Avatar. I can probably count how many jokes or gags are in this episode on one hand. It takes itself very seriously and does the job really well. Like I said, it finally gives Zuko the wins the audience wanted to see, but it steals the glory of those wins from him, which leaves the ending more sad than happy. The flashback stuff, for me at least, is the weaker half of the episode. It's good that we get to see more of Zuko's backstory and his mom and see how her caring nature frames the goodness we see inside of Zuko, but like I mentioned, I see how over the top Azula is as a pretty considerable downside. The other half of the story, incredible. You want to know why westerns dominated the theaters back in the day? It's because these kind of stories are enthralling, and the idea to fit Zuko's backstory into a classic western that mirrors the elements of that backstory, it's genius, dude. It's fucking genius. I gotta stop. I could go on about this forever. Okay, patrons, if you want to see the next 2 episodes of Overanalyzing Avatar, they're available on Patreon for just a few bucks. Biggest shoutouts of all go to Fritz Sullivan, who was actually born a puppet, but then became a real boy through sheer force of will. Just got offered a job for some reason, who has the incredible superpower of being able to travel through time at the rate of 1 second per second. Keegan Scott, who is the only man on the face of the planet that is classified by the US government as dangerous in all situations. And Skylos, who was actually born a real boy but became a puppet through sheer force of will. Other huge shoutouts go to Be My Valentine, Code Canutt, Derek Cornwell, DJ Jax, Do Mutual Aid, Garmer, Glintlock, Mana, Nicholas Abbott, Flarkler, Glass, Super Snipper, and Tiago Nascimento. Next up is The Chase, which is like, you gotta follow up an episode as good as this with something. And you know what? The Chase does a pretty good job. We'll see you next time.